Welcome to NTD News. I'm Paul Greaney. Here are today's top stories. President Trump today announced a partial trade deal with China. He's calling it Phase 1. See what the agreement entails. As tensions increase in Syria, President Trump is set to sign a new executive order. The US is also sending forces to Saudi Arabia to help bolster its defense. In Hong Kong, a student says the police sexually assaulted her. It's raising awareness of police brutality amid the pro-democracy protests. And in California, a raging wildfire is threatening homes. Thousands are already under evacuation orders. Find out what officials are saying. President Trump announced a partial trade deal with China today. This comes on the second day of high-level negotiations in Washington and after a 15-month trade war.
After projecting confidence on the trade talks yesterday,
and I think it's going really well.
Trump announced a mini trade deal with China that he called Phase 1 of a larger deal.
It covers so much territory that doing it in sections and phases is, I think, really better.
The preliminary agreement has China buying substantially more agricultural products from the U.S. U.S. Trade Representative Robert Lighthizer said China is set to buy $50 billion a year within 2 years.
When we talk about $50 billion in agriculture, we never had that in mind in the first deal. We were thinking about 20.
The two countries have also reached a limited agreement on forced technology transfers, intellectual property, currency, and financial services. In addition to the deal, Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin said a scheduled increase in U.S. tariffs had been called off. Next Tuesday, the U.S. was set to increase tariffs on $250 billion in Chinese goods from 25% to 30%. However, there may still be an increase in U.S. tariffs in December.
The way this timing works out, that'll be well in advance of that date.
The deal has yet to be put in writing, but Trump thinks it can be put to paper in 4 weeks. Trump and Chinese leader Xi Jinping are set to meet for an APEC summit in Chile in 5 weeks. Trump says he hopes they will be able to sign the deal during the summit. Holly Kellum, NTD News.
The president is going to give himself wide authorities to sanction Turkey. It was announced today that he will sign an executive order on it soon.
We will be working in consultation with the Department of Defense and Department of State to monitoring this very quickly.
Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin said the executive order will allow the U.S. to target anyone in Turkey's government.
This will be both primary sanctions and secondary sanctions that will be applicable.
President Trump has warned Turkey that it will obliterate the Turkish economy if it does anything off limits to the Kurds in northeast Syria.
Turkey knows where I stand.
Turkey, a NATO ally, considers the Kurds a terrorist organization and started a military offensive against them on Wednesday. The Kurds were a valuable U.S. ally in the fight against ISIS. The Kurds have bipartisan support in Congress, and many lawmakers have called for legislation to sanction Turkey over the offensive. Mnuchin says that won't be necessary.
I think the message to Congress is, I know that people were contemplating sanctions. We're on top of sanctions. The president will use them when necessary.
Mnuchin did not say when the executive order will be signed. The White House also didn't respond to our question about timing by deadline. Holly Kellum, NTD News.
The U.S. is sending a large deployment of forces to Saudi Arabia to help bolster the kingdom's defenses.
According to the Pentagon, the planned deployment comes after Saudi Arabia, a long-standing U.S. security partner in the Middle East, asked for additional support to supplement its defenses and follows the September 14th attack on Saudi Arabia's oil facilities, which both parties blame on Iran.
In response to continued threats in the region, I've ordered the deployment to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia of 2 additional fighter squadrons and supporting personnel, along with additional Patriot and THAAD air and missile defense batteries.
Defense Secretary Mark Esper explained that, including deployments extended or authorized within the last month, the move involves about 3,000 U.S. forces. The deployment is part of a series of what the U.S. has called defensive moves following the attack on Saudi Arabia's oil facilities last month, which rattled global energy markets.
President Trump saying today he will nominate U.S. Deputy Secretary of State John Sullivan to be the next U.S. ambassador to Russia. Sullivan will replace John Huntsman, who resigned in August after 2 years in the post. That month, Trump said he was considering Sullivan for the job. Sullivan has been a career U.S. diplomat since 1990, with posts all over the world. According to the Wall Street Journal, he is currently leading a pair of ongoing dialogues with Russia relating to counterterrorism and strategic security. President Trump's tax records could soon be in the hands of lawmakers after an appeals court upheld a lower court's ruling.
The U.S. Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia made a 2-to-1 ruling in the case that Trump's accounting firm must turn over 8 years of tax documents. The House Oversight Committee had subpoenaed Trump's accounting firm Mazars USA to hand over the financial documents. Trump's legal team has said that the investigation served no legitimate purpose. The president could try to appeal to the U.S. Supreme Court.
Grace and Frankie actress Jane Fonda has been arrested while taking part in an environmental protest today at the U.S. Capitol. Capitol Police said Fonda was arrested and charged with 16 other protesters for unlawfully demonstrating in front of the Capitol. The 81-year-old Hollywood celebrity has taken part in several demonstrations about the environment. Fonda told the Washington Post she plans to demonstrate every Friday for the next 14 weeks. And according to the LA Times, she hopes to be arrested in the process. A national report shows an increasing number of millennials preferring